Welcome from my side to everybody. Perhaps a short background why I'm doing this webinar. I'm an agricultural engineer. I'm working since nearly 30 years now at FIBE Research Institute for Organic Agriculture in Switzerland. The first 10 years I was in research, and then I moved to research communication and dissemination for another 10 years. There I did mostly written tools like manuals or guides or technical leaflets. And about 10 years ago, I started to discover video as a very powerful tool for dissemination. And in the meantime, or in the last 10 years, I have done about 500 videos, short videos, and I would like to share my experiences with you. I will start with a short introduction on video and agriculture, why this is such a good match. Then I will talk about the necessary equipment for 15 minutes. I will go through the 3 steps of each video, which is planning, preparing a video, then the filming itself, and the editing phase. Okay, why to produce your own video? As I mentioned, I find video a very powerful dissemination tool, especially because you can transfer knowledge of your stakeholders, of farmers, of advisors, also researchers, firsthand in a very authentic way. Especially farmers, I think that's fantastic to show all the knowledge, tacit knowledge, experiences of farmers in videos. And you can increase the reach out of field days. If you prepare a field demonstration, and that's what Nefertiti is all about, then you put a lot of effort in it to organize everything. And in the end, perhaps 50 or hundreds or even 500 people turn up. But if you do videos on certain topics of these events, then you can enormously increase the reach out of these events. And last but not least, very important, nowadays the equipment is very good, it's simple to use, and it's not so expensive. Of course, you can spend a lot of money also in this equipment thing, but the basic material is not expensive. I've listed here a few possible video applications in agriculture. First of all, machinery demonstration, that's the most popular, especially if you are on YouTube with your videos. These are always the videos which have the most views. Big advantage, you can show details of the machinery which even the visitors in the fields can't see in detail. Then second, I would say practice, innovation in practice. As I mentioned, if farmers have some developments or techniques on farm, you can showcase them. You can make tutorials, of course. You can make tutorials in the field, or here in the example in a greenhouse, where a farmer or an advisor or a researcher is showing tools. Here, for example, there are tools for using in fertigation in greenhouses. And you also can make tutorials in a studio in brackets, because you can do it very easily just using a green screen. I show you perhaps later on these techniques. I find it quite a useful way of producing videos. Then you can cover events, workshops, seminars, conferences. In an international conference, for instance, you have all the experts in one room, and you can make videos about their topics, or you can cover an event as a whole, as you wish. Then you can make videos about research projects. I also use the green screen technique for this. For instance, if somebody has published in a very good journal his research, you can bring the highlights of this research in a video. You can make teaser promotional material for publications as well, or if you are a farmer, you can produce promotional videos, what you offer on your farm. I would mention here that with promotional material, I would be a bit careful because we are used as viewers that promotional videos are very professional looking. So you have to be really careful whether you want to do it on your own with some original ideas or your personality. But in general, I would say you could also leave it to the professional. Another application, a very simple application, is just to enrich your online texts or to enrich your presentation, your PowerPoint presentation, by just a few clips showing a machinery or whatever in different angles. And last but not least, a tool which we found quite interesting, especially if people are not too keen on producing their own video. We use it a lot in European projects. There are so-called animated PowerPoints. I come back to that towards the end of my presentation. Next slide, please. There are 3 steps of each video production. There's the planning, pre-production, and of course, you have to think about what equipment do I need. Then the second phase is the shooting itself. And the third one is the post-production, the editing, and the dissemination. And I would really emphasize that all 3 steps are equally important to produce a successful video. First, I would like to go a bit on the equipment side. First of all, what should I use? Smartphone, video camera, or even your photo camera. They all have some advantages, disadvantages. Smartphone is always with you. The picture quality is excellent of the newer models, of course, and it's easy to operate. What is the disadvantage of the smartphone? You need an external microphone. When there is a bit of wind, you have this terrible wind noise, and this is really annoying. So you need an external mic. I come back to that. Another disadvantage is the image control is really difficult in sunshine, and you have no zoom. Till now you had no zoom, no possibility for tele, but now of course with the new models you have even this possibility. You also can use your normal handycam, for instance. They are available from €300 on. The advantage is the whole handling. It's just made for filming. Very important, if you buy a new handycam, make sure that they have plugs for microphone and the headphones. Most smart cam producers, they don't have that anymore because they obviously think that the consumer doesn't need it. But if you want to do videos, you really need these 2 plugins. Some people like to use their photo camera for filming. That's of course also an option. You can put external microphone on it, and it's really easy to use. But I think the handling, if you're not used to, it needs some exercise because it's not so natural like for the other cameras. Next slide, please. I already mentioned external microphone is really important to use that, and I would say in all situations except if you are inside in a room and you really can't go close to the person you're interviewing, you might not use it. But otherwise, cheapest solution is just a microphone like this with a cable, a lavalier microphone. You can clip it on the collar of the person. Costs about €20. If you need more cable, you can use a prolongation. Cheapest way, and big advantage, you can change and put this windbreaker fur on it, so you can stay outside in a hurricane and you still have a very good sound quality. So that's the minimal requirement you have. Other important detail, if you buy one, you have to buy different ones for smartphone. For smartphones, you need to pay attention that you have here, perhaps you can see, 3 rings. they are for smartphones, and 2 rings like this one here, they are for normal cameras, for other cameras. So pay attention to this small detail. Then you can use shotgun microphones. I prefer them when I'm, for instance, at a conference and you want to interview different people and you don't want to always set up the microphone again. But with this, of course, you only can get about the distance of maximum 1 meter. And then that's my main recommendation. If you want to do videos, it's really worth it to buy a wireless microphone, especially in agricultural context. If you have somebody in front of a machinery explaining things, it's really annoying if you have a cable all the time. So there are wireless microphones available now on the market from about 160 euro. For example, here this Rode Wireless Go, an excellent microphone. It's really worth the money, and I strongly would recommend this to you. Another important point is that you always see when there's an amateur video, let's say, they're always shaky pictures. So stabilize your video. That's one of a very important aspect. You can, if you use your smartphone, you can buy a rig like this one here. It has the advantage that you can mount also microphone or a small light. If you are inside, it's very useful. And on top of it, you can mount here a tripod below. Can you see? Yeah. So you have quite a stable equipment like that. Another option would be a gimbal for your smartphone. This is a stabilizer. It delivers really smooth pictures. For instance, if you walk behind a machinery, then you can really make stable pictures with this. You see there is a motor in it, 3 motors, which actually stabilize the picture. Or you also can use a shoulder rig for your camera, which is quite a cheap solution. And the last one would be a tripod with video head. Manfrotto, for instance, would be a good one. But don't use normal photo tripods. And then there is some nice to have equipment, like this action cam, for instance, also in agriculture, very popular. Last but not least, of course, always more popular are becoming the drones. They are quite small and quite easy to operate, and I quite often use them to start in a video, to show the people where we are, to show the fields. If you have field trials, of course, drones are fantastic to show the pattern of your field trials. 360-degree camera, to start with, I wouldn't recommend. It's a bit complicated to use, and I'm not really convinced of the added value of it. So next slide, please. It's a short time for reflection about equipment. Do you have any answers? I think Adrian is looking at the chat box, or your experiences. Adrian?
Yes, we've got a question from Antoine Horry from Capgemini, I believe it's in France. Antoine, could you ask your question already?
I've heard that filming with a reflex camera could damage the motherboard of the camera. Do you agree? Do you have advices?
I haven't heard that, but what's, at least with the older models with reflex camera, you cannot film longer than 30 minutes and then it will stop. But otherwise, I haven't heard any disadvantage. I think many films are done with reflex cameras. There's nothing to say against it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Antoine, for your question. Any other question? Kilian?
Yeah, hello. I can add some experience with using a gimbal and smartphone, because I've tried this for our first Nefertiti online demonstration. And it seems like when you have a low-end smartphone with a small processor, and you use the gimbal app at the same time, it seemed like the video frame rate was dropping quite a bit. So at first I had videos where I just used the camera app and the gimbal on manual mode, and it worked pretty good. But then I used the app that came with the gimbal, and it seemed like my phone was just too slow for it to process, and everything was really like stuttering images.
Thanks very much for that, Kilian. I have to say I use the gimbal without the app all the time, so I don't find it very. I find it easier, and I actually have to say, if I'm not moving myself, I don't use the gimbal anymore, because the stabilizer which is built in the smartphone is so good nowadays. You can really make really stable pictures just using your smartphone like this. So,
okay, thank you very much, Kilian, for this experience. And we've got a question from Ivana also. Ivana, please.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Thomas. Thank you for presentation. I have a question that is related to the first part where you differentiate different video styles, different video types. The experience with the research projects that we have had jointly in Core Organic has shown that there is a great interest, but I would like to ask you, do you think that there is something that can be done that these research project videos are more popular, or that they become more relevant for a wider audience than just the scientific community? Or over the time, what is your experience, how it has evolved? Thank you.
Hi Ivana. Thanks for the question. I mean, you never get the amount or size, amount of views with a research video like for a machine demonstration. I think that's a matter of fact. But if you get the right people and advisors or multipliers, then I think it's also good if you have only 1,000 views for your research video. So, of course, on YouTube, the most important thing that counts is a number of views. But I think it's more than that. It's the number of that you reach your target audience. And of course, you really have to promote them, because YouTube just pushes or promotes what is popular, and all this more educative stuff is not really pushed by YouTube. So it has to be pushed by the dissemination groups of the project, etc. I'm still convinced that it's a good way of promoting your research, to combine written publication with video. I think it's a good thing to do.
Hi to everybody, and hi Thomas. I would like to ask you a question. What is the best bitrate resolution for publishing a video on YouTube without any loss of quality?
First of all, I can't really answer your question. Second, I think it doesn't really matter.
Okay, thank you.
Hello, and thanks for the great introduction. A quick question for Thomas. I have footage shot by different sources. So I have some footage by a GoPro and some footage. The narrative is done with a normal camera, and I just want to connect this together to get a full video. So I guess you're giving some information about that later?
Yes, that will be in the editing part then.
Fab, thank you.
It's very important that you really plan your video well. And but that's my way to how to approach it. I always do an intro, which is about 30 seconds or maximum 45 seconds, where I try to tell the viewer the relevance of the topic and what or she or he can learn if she watches this video. I think that's quite important, especially on YouTube, because viewers are so quickly gone, and if they don't get in the first seconds the topic, then it might be difficult. And then the main part would be to really define the key messages and also the length of each part. And I often do chapters. And I also try always to find a good end, some conclusion, some recommendation, some call for action, or it can be also a testimonial at the end who kind of summarizes what has been shown. Here would be an example. I think we skipped that, so we have more time for discussion. It's very important that when you plan your video, that you understand the so-called A-roll and the B-roll concept. The A-roll would be your person who is talking, like a farmer here, and B-roll would be pictures of the farm, the farmer at work, etc. So you really have to be aware that you have these two levels. We use that one to cover cuts. If you don't use that, then you have the so-called jump cuts, which is also a style used as a style in YouTube videos, for instance. But normally we try to cover these cuts. And secondly, because you can provide additional information to the viewer about what the person in the A-roll is talking about. So that's an important thing, and probably to those of you who already have done videos, it's very clear, but I've noticed that some people are not aware of that they have to think in these two dimensions. Next slide, please. We come to the editing part towards the end here, just to show you how it looks in your editing program, this A and B roll once more. You see this person here who is explaining things. And then in the B-roll, you kind of cover the cuts and you give additional information. Another thing you have to be aware when you do your planning, do I want to use an off speaker, a voiceover, or do I want to just use the presenter? They're both, again, have advantages and disadvantages. I find if I use a presenter, this is the way I mostly work with, because it's very efficient and it's very authentic. And the disadvantage, of course, or in brackets, of course, is that you need a suitable person who likes to speak in front of a camera. The speaker version would be, you can really find precise formulations for the text of the speaker. You can do the writing afterwards when you have seen the situation and everything, but it's less authentic, and writing needs more time for some people. But if you are good in writing, then of course, then I would probably prefer this version. Or you use a combination of both moderator and off speaker. And I really recommend, when you start to do a video, I really recommend you to write it down, your plannings, because writing it down, you are more aware of what content is really important. Two columns. One is on the content, where you enter your content, the key in keywords, and one is the picture level. So you really try to imagine, to figure out how your video will look like, and you do that before you go actually on the field filming. Okay, short break for the planning phase. How do you proceed, or was everything clear?
Thank you, Thomas. Again, we've got a question from Jim in the Netherlands. Jim.
Hi, Thomas.
Hi, Jim.
I was wondering, how do you collect the text of the narrator? What equipment or what program do you use for that? I mean, you could use your camera, of course, also to collect the text from the narrator, but well, probably actually, there's a more efficient way to do that.
I mean, how to register?
Yeah.
Actually, I bought a YouTube microphone, which is connected to the computer with Odyssey. The program is Odyssey. But now I have it at the institute. But now in the Corona times, I just did it. I sent the text to, let's say, a native speaker, and they just recorded it with the smartphone. Not even a microphone, but with the smartphone, and the quality is not perfect, of course, but it's good enough. What you have to pay attention to, that you are in a room where you have no echo, no hall.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
We've got another question from Johan. Johan, please.
Yes, thanks. The short introduction, I make a lot of videos together with farmers and a professional company which do the actual editing and shooting the videos of trying to capture the experience of farmers with precision agriculture. And I normally play the A role, where I present the introduction and outroduction. And I, in the main part, I have the role as an interviewer. And my question is, could you give advantages and disadvantages of that role, or tips?
First of all, I think that's perfect. Then you really like the moderator of your video, and I think that's a big advantage. If you like to do it, personally, I don't like to do it, but if you like to do it, then it's great. And I think on YouTube you will be much more successful that way, because YouTube likes this personalized way of presenting the topics. So I just would like to encourage to carry on with this format.
Thanks.
Thanks, Johan. You can put your hand down, and we've got another question from Fiona.
If you're recording indoors and there's a lot of echo, if you have curtains to pull them, yes, and hang out blankets and things like that. And that's what they were doing for their television broadcasts when they had to do them from their homes.
Ina?
Well, I just wanted to share an experience that concerning the B-roll. You cannot have enough B-roll because while editing you always lack something, and you need a little piece of B-roll somewhere, so you never have enough B-roll. So keep shooting while you're there, because you will definitely need it at some point.
I will come to that, but that's thank you very much for this, Ina. It's exactly, but on your first video you will discover that you really need it. Okay.
And we've got the last question from Claudia. I will ask it orally. How do you manage when you have to operate filming and interviewing?
Okay, that will be the next chapter, I think.
Okay, so thank you, Claudia, for your really accurate transition.
We're going now to the shooting, and here we already said B-roll, but the most important part, of course, is to get the commentary, so that you get by interviewing the persons. First of all, sitting or standing. I prefer if the people are standing, but if you have a very long interview, of course, it might be more useful if they are sitting. In order that I can manage myself, as I think it was Claudia was asking, how do I manage to film on myself? I do everything in auto mode in the camera. I use my tripod, so I really can concentrate on the interviewed person and the content. It's important that you always check the sound via your headphones, and I try to let the interviewed person speak freely. For farmers, that's not a problem at all. For advisors, neither. Researchers, they tend to they want to be very precise usually, and they tend to write down the text, but try to make them speak freely. Then it's very important that you keep eye contact, just nod with your head, and never say yes, or very interesting words like that would be disastrous because you can't get them out afterwards in the editing. And what is very important, ensure a relaxed atmosphere. Most people tend to be a bit nervous in front of the camera. The bigger the camera, the more nervous people get. That's another advantage, by the way, of filming with smartphones. But it's important to contribute to a relaxed atmosphere, and that means don't interrupt the person too often or too frequently. Try to listen to them. And then usually they talk too long. And but then you just let them talk, and then you see a bit what they talk about, and then you pick out the aspects which seems to you relevant for your video, and then try ask them to repeat it again. This certain aspects. I can really say the first version I rarely use. I use the second and the third version. So that are my tips for interviewing. Then how should the picture look like? One thing you often can observe is that the eye line, that people think, I take the person in the middle and then it's fine. So, but you see here that even though it's the highest organic farmer in Switzerland, he appears much too low because his eye line is in the middle instead of the upper third, like in the picture beside that with Mechthild, where she appears much more present and more powerful compared to the man on the other side. And then that's the rule of third, we call it. And then the next question would be, how should be the cadrage of the picture? And here you have below with Jose Manuel Torres, again from the Nefertiti hub in Almeria. In the beginning, I often do a long establishing shot to show where we are, to see the person in her surroundings, but that's only for the beginning and perhaps sometimes in between. But the main interview I will do in between medium and shoulder close-up. Real close-ups I don't really do very often. First of all, because the people we are filming are not they don't have any makeup, and so you shouldn't really go too close. And because you are on your own and you have to film, then if you are too close, then people might move out of the picture. So between medium long and shoulder close-up would be my favorite cadrage. And this again depends if the person is speaking a lot with his hands or her hands, or if she shows things, then I would go more towards medium long. But actually for the picture, it's better to be a bit closer. But that you have to decide at the situation. If you do two shots, let's say, like I explained to you before, when interviewing the person, then you can do one medium long and a closer up for the second version. So you can mix between these two cadrage types. So the light at the interview, we mostly try to work with natural light. So you have to get your person in the shadow. That's not always possible. I'm well aware of that. But if you are, for instance, inside in a room, then you have to turn your person towards the light. That means towards a window or towards a lamp. That gives a nice shiny eyes, and the shadows are quite soft. Outside, as mentioned, if possible in the shade, and if it's possible, you can brighten up with a lamp. And another point is really outside people often have these baseball caps, and they really hide the eyes of the person, so try to convince them to take them off. Now we come to the B-roll. As I think it was Ina already mentioned, make as much footage as possible. Minimum would be 30 seconds, and in these 30 seconds you should do no pan and no zooming, just hold quiet, because that's also another thing which is really annoying. If you have to edit, then if you have a zoom in middle, then you can't really use it. And try to use as many as different settings, long, medium, close-ups, so that your video becomes really varied. And if you do a pan, move your camera slowly and really avoid zooming. It's not possible to do a zoom if you're not used to it, if you're not a professional camera, to do a professional zoom. So here again we have this different cadrage, long shot, it's also called establishing shot. Here I often use drone pictures to show the scenery, to open up, then medium long shot to show where the person is speaking, and then very important, show close-ups. They really make the video more informative if you can show details. And then close-ups with action cams, I already mentioned, or close-ups with zoom, with the camera, with the teleobjective. What are your experiences or additional questions to filming?
Johan, you had a question.
Yes, first one was just a comment. That's a good tip to let the interviewed person repeat if not focused enough. I experienced it many often that you get a very long answer, and if you just want to make a 2-minute video, it doesn't fit. So good tip on that. I experienced also another thing that I was interviewed, or I interviewed somebody when we had a clear sky, full sun, and what your tip was, place your face in the direction of the sun. The disadvantage of that is that you are narrowing down your eyelids and are really looking in that way. Do you have tips on that to cope with it?
No. No, I didn't mean, I meant window or lamp, but of course you shouldn't go directly in the sunlight. That's a misunderstanding. The sunlight should come from the side.
Yeah, thanks.
Okay, another question from Jim. Jim?
Yeah, I was thinking about some, for example, equipment for water treatment is stagnant, so there's no movement at all. And if you want to show something there in the B-roll, it's really, well, standstill footage. I tried to do some zooming in that, but well, you just said zooming is not a very good way to do that. But then it makes it a bit more dynamic if you use zoom for that.
Then you can also do just a picture, a photograph, and then use the Ken Burn effect in your video editing program.
Yeah.
But perhaps if you have a very immobile context, then you could do with the gimbal or with your smartphone a slow pan, just moving that way. I think that could be also a way of giving some dynamics into your picture.
Yeah, great tip. Thanks.
Another question from Lisa Morgans. Lisa.
Hello, thank you. My question was, does the interviewee look directly at yourself asking the questions, or at the camera, or because that's what I found quite awkward, trying to tell someone where to look.
Yeah. Very important point. Thanks for that, Lisa. It's if the person has the function of the moderator or presenter, if he leads through the video, then it's usually they should look directly into the camera. But if the person has more the function of a testimonial or an interviewed person, then they should slightly across the camera, which is or sideways of the camera, which is a bit difficult because you stand behind the camera and you want to have eye contact with the person. So that means you have to shift a bit to the side and then ask them to look at you to the camera. That's how it's usually handled. I personally find it quite, yeah. I mean, it's for me, it's okay if the person also looks directly at me when I'm behind the camera. It's yeah, for me it's more important that I have the control over the picture, and if I move sideways I don't see what's on my screen in the camera, and this I don't like. So that's why my people mostly look to the camera, but you're right, you should look slightly sideways.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Dimitrios.
Yes, thank you. I would like to ask a question. Do you practice the sign before an interview, the signing of an agreement that you can have the interviewee giving consent to release the video to the internet?
Thank you very much for this question, a very important point. In European project, we have a form, a consent form, where people should write, yeah, that they give their consent. What I do, I find it not very practical, because first of all, I don't know if I use this statement in the end. What I do, if I interview a person, I get the email address and I send them the raw cut, the first raw cut before publishing. And then I get the consent via email, because then they know what they kind of put their signature on. Because if you put it just on the field, they have no idea what the video will look like afterward. So I find this way of afterwards sending the raw cut much more, let's say, trustful.
Okay, thank you very much.
And another question from Claudia. Claudia, please.
Yeah, hi, Thomas. Just a question about the detailed footages. Do you interrupt the interview and do you tell, now I want to film your hands, and does it disturb your the rhythm?
Thank you again for this question, very important. I try to do first really the voice track. So we do the interview, and then I try to remember what he or she was speaking about, and then we do in a second shooting, we do the details.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, thanks. So let's move to the last part on editing. Okay, so editing, and I really would recommend you to do editing of your videos. But editing is probably the most challenging part of producing your own video. First of all, you have to decide, do I want to edit on my smartphone or on my computer? There are some arguments to edit on your smartphone. First of all, if your computer hasn't got the necessary RAM, let's say you need at least 8 giga RAM to have a smooth workflow. And if you film, for instance, with your smartphone with 4K resolution, then your computer will come to its limits quite often. So that would be a situation when you rather edit on your smartphone or on your iPad if you have one. There are some good editing programs for Android. There could be Filmora. I have listed here a few, but there are many, many more. And what I would recommend you, if you're going to decide which editing software you want to use, then just Google best editing software and you will find examples, and then try out free software, the free test trial version, whether you like it or not. For iPhone, it's a bit easier, I would say. iMovie is an excellent program, and I think it's for free on every iPhone, or if not, then you can buy it for €5, I think. LumaFusion is a bit more powerful even, but always more powerful means also more complicated. So I would really recommend to start with a simple editing program. and then move on if you want to go more into details. LumaFusion costs about €20. Quite new is Adobe Premiere Rush, and this is quite powerful again, but it's on a monthly rental base. And the advantage is that you also can install the app on your computer, and everything is saved in the cloud, and then you can work on your smartphone, and also at the same project on your computer. On your computer, if you're using a Mac, the decision is again quite easy. You have iMovie on your Mac, and Apple Final Cut Pro, which I use, is then the more advanced version for about €300. Then you have different programs for PC. Power Director is quite a popular one. Some people ask me, is there any free software for editing? Yes, there is. For instance, DaVinci Resolve or hitfilm.com. They are for free and they're very powerful, very good programs, but I wouldn't recommend it to you if you are starting with, because they are too powerful, they have too many possibilities. I really would recommend you with something payable like Vegas Movie Studio or Adobe Premiere Elements is quite popular. They cost below €100, and they are quite simple and easy to handle. Here again, I would recommend sit down on a rainy Sunday afternoon, download the free test version, try out which suits you well, watch some YouTube tutorials before you decide for which one you want to go. Another selection criteria, I think, would be whether it's available in your language or not. So here are some tips for editing. First of all, we discussed that already. You have to decide, do I want to edit on my smartphone or my computer? Once you have done this decision, then the rest is more or less the same. What I do always first is the voice track. That's like the backbone of my film. I also do all the A's and O's out. I try to condense the content as much as possible. I always ask myself, does this sentence really push the story forward? Is this necessary? And then once you have your voice track edited, then place the B-rolls over the cuts and there where it suits to what is said. And here you have to find a kind of rhythm between showing the face of the person interviewed and the details. So it has to become a flow in the end. And also contributing to a flow and to easily understand the videos, add titles, and also insert some breaks where the viewer can breathe for a few seconds, especially if you have a lot of talking going on. And another recommendation, use effects, transitions, etc. very sparingly, because you can tell that somebody is new in editing if there are all these fancy transitions used. The normal transition is either hard cut or a soft cut. In some situations you can use soft cut, but usually it's hard cut. And then if you like, you can add music. Use only license-free music. There's an excellent audio library in YouTube, free of charge. If you have your own YouTube channel, you can access to this music. You can search for genre, instrument type, mood, etc. The problem with YouTube music, you find them in so many different videos. If you want to be a bit more unique, then you have to buy it. For instance, Audio Jungle I find quite a good provider. One piece costs about $20 US, and you can use it then as many times and different videos as you wish.
So I will just quote few statements. Anthony, you confirms that Adobe Premiere is very powerful and easy to dig in, and with after a expect you can add some infography to your video. So it seems that Anthony likes quite a lot Adobe Premiere. Laure just started working on Shortcut, a free editing program. So it's quite it looks quite intuitive, so easy to use for beginners, let's say. And we've got a set of questions. Lucy Sumption, could you ask a question, please?
Yes, really just in relation to the use of text over videos. Sometimes you see videos where they don't have anybody speaking and it's just all text. And it's just something I've been involved in working on here in the UK is with farmers who are dyslexic. So it doesn't really cater for that audience of people who find reading quite difficult. So it's just something for people to be aware about that. Certainly in the rural population, there's a much higher percentage of dyslexic people than in the wider population. So just something to think about, audience, if you're going to use text within your videos or over your videos.
Yeah, I mean, you're completely right. I mean, if I use text, then it's really just one or two words to kind of introduce the chapter or so. And but on the other hand, what we often do is to subtitles, because many people are not listening to the voice. And then for them is subtitle is quite useful if you are in the train, they have no headphones, etc. So the best is to use both text and voice.
And yeah, and I will add in the frame of EU project in Nefertiti, for example, we have to translate videos because they are also relevant for other languages and other countries. So that's basically what we do, also to try to add text in several languages to increase the access of video and the impact. We've got another question from Spiridula.
Hi, it's basically the same one. So can we use different files to combine in one video? So
yes.
Files from iPhone and pictures and GoPro and all different. Yes.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's no problem.
Great.
Of course, if you're editing on your iPhone, then I have to think how you get your GoPro pictures to the iPhone. But
no, it's going to be on the computer, I think.
Okay, then it's no problem.
Yeah, that's fine. Thank you.
Okay, another question from Annette.
Yes, hi. I was just wondering if it's still possible to install Adobe Premiere Elements. I can't find it when I look for it. And if there's any program in between Rush and Premiere Pro, because I find Rush is pretty basic and Premiere Pro is pretty complicated.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I think the last version I installed was in 2019. So,
and I believe a quite important question for beginners from Simon.
Yeah, I would like to ask, how can you add subtitles? Is there any software you can recommend so that I can do it without YouTube and without Facebook, so on my own?
You mean that the subtitles are burned in, kind
yes.
of?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that I can use the video, for example, on our homepage or so.
Okay. Yes, you can do that. But I mean, of course, you can. I think most programs have a subtitles feature, but I only know it from Apple. And there you can just upload it. But the easiest way is to upload an SRT file, which you generate in YouTube, and then you can upload it directly into your editing program, and the subtitles are in the correct place. So that's the most easiest way. And otherwise, I would say just use a normal text text feature. And copy paste your text, your subtitles in there.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, and I see that Anne-Catherine put the link to Adobe Premiere in the chat. So thank you, Anne-Catherine, for that, and I hope it will work. And Anne-Christine is asking if there is any free software for video.
For video editing,
yeah.
Yes, there is. As I mentioned, HitFilm, Shortcut, and Adobe Resolve DaVinci. They are the most popular one. But somebody in the audience said they made very good experiences with Shortcut.
Yeah, Laura.
What we found is in a play project that there were too powerful, too many options for people who are not used for editing. But of course, I don't want to prevent you from trying out these three free software: HitFilm, Shortcut, and DaVinci Resolve. We often notice that it's quite hard for people, if they are not really so keen on video editing, to produce a decent video. And so we thought, what could be an alternative? If you want for your European project, you have to do more and more animated visual material. And one possibility would be to use PowerPoint, because everybody can use PowerPoint, and just combine text and pictures and animate them, makes a transition, and then export the whole thing as a move file. And then you can upload it to YouTube again and use your, like a video. It's very important that you really, again, the planning here is the same. You have to define your key messages and then define the text, which is 1, maximum 2 sentences. But what you also can do is to animate graphs, etc. I would like to summarize and give some final recommendation. If you start, then start with a very simple topic which is suitable for visualization. Then prepare an outline, define your key messages, select a presenter which is good, because that makes it also much easier if you have somebody who is a good presenter, and use external microphone and tripod, and shoot enough B-roll, as was mentioned before. You never have enough B-roll. And I usually plan about 1 day for editing. Your video improves enormously if you do a careful editing. So that would be my tips. I have prepared a few more slides, if perhaps we can go through them. Here's the link to our download, to our video guide. I would like to just shortly mention these tutorial style videos. They're really simple, and I often use them, for instance, also in European projects. I just take along my transportable green screen, which looks like this. It's very easy. Just put it on the wall of an office somewhere where the meeting takes place. And you don't need all these lamps here, which are shown on the picture. They're not necessary. And then if you have this green screen behind a person, then you can, in the editing program, you can then cut out the green and the person is free, and you can put some pictures or some clips or just a neutral background of the behind the person, and this looks quite professional. What you also can do is generate a graph in PowerPoint and make a picture of it, put it in back of the person. So that's a really easy way of doing tutorials, videos on research where you have to show graphs, or also longer videos, more complex ones where you need more concentration and where it's not really necessary to be on the field. So I think that's all for the moment. Thanks very much for your attention, and especially also for your contributions. I really enjoyed that. More than 180 people discussing with each other. I think that's great. Fantastic. Thanks very much.
Thank you very much again, Thomas. As I mentioned before, we've got a farm demo YouTube channel. So we strongly invite you to visit and to get an abonnement, free of course, for this farm demo YouTube channel, because it's the channel from Plaid, Nefertiti and AgriDemo. So there is a wide range of video uploaded there in several languages. And this channel will be sustained in the time because our objective is that this channel could be also useful for other and future demonstration projects. A new one on IPM have been funded and will start by the end of the year. So we want it as a one-stop shop for many videos in agriculture, and we hope you will find interesting videos and knowledge on the channel. And I also put, of course, all Nefertiti social media where you can access several information on the project, on demonstration, and on knowledge exchange in general. So thank you very much. This is the end. And we wish you a nice afternoon, good holidays for some of you, and hoping to see you soon in the near future. And thank you again, Thomas, for sharing all this knowledge with everybody, because from the comment, it was really, really useful for most of us.